Right now, people from all over the world are seeing the numbers 1111 so often that they're doing what you're doing right now. They're looking it up online, wondering, why am I seeing these numbers everywhere? Why am I seeing them on clocks? You might be seeing them on license plates, addresses, and you're probably seeing it so often that you can't help but wonder what the heck is going on. Hence, you being here, looking it up. Why am I seeing 1111 online? That was me a long time ago. I started to see these numbers over and over and over again. And on one hand, I chalked it up to just mere coincidence. But there's a part of me that knew that there was something else happening. Because it wasn't just that I saw the numbers, it's how I felt when I saw them. There was a sense that there was meaning to these numbers, even though I didn't yet understand what it was. There's this feeling that these numbers, as crazy as it sounds, it's like they're trying to tell me something. What are you trying to tell me? And the reason I'm making this video is because over the last 10 years, it's become more clear to me why people see these numbers, what they are trying to tell you, and how you can use this awareness to massively transform your life. My life shifted, upgraded, became a million more times awesome on all conceivable levels after I started seeing those numbers. Seeing 1111 so often that I, just like you, went onto Google and looked up, why am I seeing 1111? That phase of my life literally gave way to one of the most exciting, sometimes challenging, quite honestly, but beautiful, soulful, purposeful, just I'm running out of adjectives. An amazing journey, my friend. This is the beginning of a fascinating journey that you're about to take. And this video is going to share with you the different reasons why people, not just you, but people from all over the world, thousands upon thousands of people of all different types, are seeing these numbers. The 1111 phenomenon is taking place on a very rapid level now on planet Earth, and this video is going to share with you why you are seeing and why others are seeing 1111 so often. And my hope is that when you know what's going on, you can roll with it, you can take advantage of it, and you can experience the same life, all-encompassing life upgrade that I have. So with that said, welcome to my channel, my friends. If I didn't say, my name is Victor. It's a pleasure to have you here, and I look forward to seeing you inside the video. Much love. Number one, unfortunately, is not all that magical. It's called the frequency illusion. It's a scientific term that basically says that our brains, your and my brain, we normally filter out most information. We only perceive a small fraction of all the different content available in every given moment. And our brain is quite biased as to what it lets in and what it filters out. However, for example, if you get a new car, you may have noticed this already in your own past, you start seeing that same car over and over because that car is now familiar to you and you're no longer filtering it out. It's not that you're seeing it more frequently, it's you're no longer filtering it out. That's what I would say the rationalists would like to sum up this whole 1111 phenomenon to. However, I think you and I both are here because we know there's something more to it than that. And I'd like to now look back in history to a very well-known, pretty much legendary Swiss psychologist. You may have heard of him, Carl Jung. Carl Jung is the first man to ever coin the term synchronicity, which is essentially what you and I seeing 1111 so frequently is. And Carl Jung says, it's not that you just see it. It's not that it's just ironic that you see the numbers. It's more so that there's a meaningful quality. It's that you see the numbers more often than you would expect to be normal. Yes, and also when you do see them, you feel something. You have a moment with these numbers. These numbers are sort of penetrating into a deep part of your intuition, into your psyche, and you know on some unexplainable deep level there is significance to you aligning with these numbers. Reason number two, it's a wake-up call from your higher self, some folks say, from your psyche, from your intuition, from your soul, letting you know that you are going through a spiritual awakening. That's for me what it represented. I was going through a spiritual awakening, which I'll get into it a bit later, but I was not aware that I was. I was having all these changes already kind of happening in my life. I was starting to think differently about myself and reality at that time anyways. I was finding myself all of a sudden drawn to spiritual content like this, books, videos, blogs, etc. And around that time, I was seeing these numbers, 1111, 1111, 1111. And once I looked it up and saw what it meant, then it kind of confirmed something that was already taking place. And boy, it's a heck of a lot smoother of a journey when you know that all the changes you're going through, sometimes the emotional upheaval and the challenges you're feeling, and just the different changes in your perception, the changes in your relationships, the changes in your diet, all these changes, it's not that you're going crazy. It's not that something bad is happening. It's something very, very good and positive is happening. You're going through a spiritual awakening. And while it does involve, yes, change, and even though in the beginning it can seem kind of scary, all of it is good change. All of it is positive change. A spiritual awakening is becoming more aligned with, more clear about who you really are. Underneath the facade, underneath the conditioning that mom and dad and society programmed you with, to their own defense, not intentionally, but most people don't know who they are. If you're seeing the numbers, you're watching this video, and there's a part of you, in a strange way, resonating with what I'm saying to you, you are going through this powerful, beautiful, beyond words, quite frankly, spiritual awakening. The numbers also come in to say you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're on track. I know how it looks. I know how it feels. And I know what you're thinking, says your soul. But boop, boop, boop. Here are these little reminders that even though you don't understand any of this, all is perfectly well. You are on track. You are exactly where you're supposed to be in this exact moment. And let me ask you, is that how you sometimes feel? I know before I even understood what these numbers meant, it felt like some type of breaching of worlds, almost like I was tapping into the mystical forces of life or the divine nature of reality. And it did have this sort of feeling of like comfort, like, I'd feel that. I'd feel relaxed. I would feel more trusting, more faithful, more aligned, more like it's going to be okay. I would feel that way without really knowing why. It's also a wake-up call from your unconscious, meaning you might also, around this time, if you're seeing these numbers, you might also currently are experiencing like an upheaval of old memories, old feelings that maybe you haven't felt for a long time. Maybe feelings you used to feel a lot when you were a little child. All of a sudden, things are happening in your life and it's triggering it up to the surface right now, and you're feeling them all over again. And it seems like disproportionate sometimes to what's happening. Maybe your boss says, some kind of like somewhat undermining remark that you would normally ignore or brush off or not think much of. And all of a sudden it's making you feel like I'm unworthy. I don't have what it takes. There's something wrong with me. Like these deep core feelings are coming up. This 1111 phenomenon is also indicative that you are now finally back in communication with your psyche. No longer so unconscious of your shadow. There's a part of us, our psyche, that literally absorbs all information from each and every moment. And we store it and we accumulate it. And over time, especially when there's something that we'll say bad happens to us when we were a little kid, it makes this imprint on our psyche and it kind of distorts. It's kind of like a wound to our identity, to our true full identity. And most people are completely unaware that they're carrying these wounds, these misaligned beliefs that they developed at an early age, and these beliefs are defining and shaping their sense of self. And then they're going through life with this very distorted sense of self, which is why they're creating all these problems within their relationships or their finances or their life or their health. 1111. It's saying you're no longer unconscious of this. You can start to, at a rate that's appropriate for you, begin to unravel Pandora's box of your shadow self so that you can become more conscious. You can become more whole. You can redefine who you are, reshape literally your reality through this expansion of your awareness and expansion of your consciousness. And I know how wild that all sounds. And yet, let me ask you, is that not happening to you right now? I know when this was happening to me, it was like, is this really happening? Why is no one talking about this? It's not just that we see the numbers, is that all this other stuff is happening as well as the fact that we're seeing these numbers so frequently. You can't help but question reality. Is magic real? What is real? This is happening too often. I'm going through too much. What the heck is going on? We're going through an awakening. You're going through an awakening. And no one told me about it, which is why it was so, paradigm shattering, you could say, at the time. And that's why I'm making this video, because once I realized, now I know I'm not crazy. Something very beneficial is happening to me. This is all normal. It reminds me of, I just had hair surgery a couple of months ago, the hair transplant surgery. And the way this goes, real quick, don't worry, this applies to the video, is they take hair, they basically pluck it from the sides of your head, and they plant it in the other parts of your head where you want hair to grow. And after about a week, it looks pretty good because all that new hair is there. You get a kind of an idea of how it's going to ultimately look. But after a few weeks, you go through what's called the ugly duckling phase. And this is where all that new hair, it falls out. And you think, oh my God, I went through all that pain, that surgery, all this time off of work, and then it's all gone. And this happened to me. And I went into the doctor about a month later, and I was like, doctor, what happened? This is not looking good. And he kind of looked at his chart and he said, you're about a month out from your surgery, right? Yeah. He said, oh yeah, this is normal. This is fine. This is supposed to happen. It's going to grow back 3 to 4 times thicker. This is good. The moment I got the reassurance from the doc, I felt immediately, better to know that it's all normal. All this wild stuff you're going through is normal. It's okay. And just having that knowingness, it can take the edge off and allow you to have more of an exciting, groovy ride. It can be more of an exciting exploration of yourself and life rather than some scary bad thing that's happening, because it's not. People also tend to see the numbers 1111 as a way of kind of confirming their line of thinking. I mean, has that happened to you where you were thinking about something, maybe a new idea, a new business idea, or a move you're going to make in terms of like maybe a new direction you're going to go in your life? And because it's kind of new, normally you would be skeptical or doubtful, and you're thinking about this, and all of a sudden 1111. And when you see it, you feel like it's supported somehow by the universe, by myself, by my soul. There's that feeling of I'm onto something. And this, you can now use these numbers 1111, which, by the way, you might also be seeing other numbers as well. I'll get into that in a little bit. The same phenomenon of synchronicity is probably happening in other areas of your life as well, in other forms. For example, sometimes you think of an old friend you haven't spoken to in many years, and all of a sudden you look down, ding, and they just text you. Anyway, you can start to work with this synchronicity, the numbers 1111, to know when you're on track, to just remember you can have faith. You can choose to have faith. Because most of the time, we don't know what lies ahead. We don't know how things are going to unfold ultimately. And you may be noticing that the more you try to control and figure things out, the more stressed you become, the more that doesn't really feel right, the less productive you become. We don't have to. These numbers coming into your field of awareness as part of this evolutionary leap in consciousness you and I and many are going through is here to say you don't have to work so hard. You don't have to try so hard. You don't have to have it all figured out. Just chill. Just go through life and flow, baby, and we'll let you know when you're on track with where you're going physically and even in your line of thinking. Those numbers might just be saying, pursue that. I know you got a job and obligations, but if you want to write that book, write that book. If you want to start that podcast, go for it. If you're thinking like, man, it would be so cool to somehow quit my job and travel around the world and go on kind of like a sabbatical, and you're seeing those numbers, it's saying there's a way. Even if you don't know how now, there's a way. Don't give up on that idea, my friend. Keep it, pursue it. See where it goes, and you just watch what happens. These numbers also represent, as kind of bizarre as this is going to sound, that your soul is back. Huh? What are you talking about? I'm reading this book, as I mentioned, Carl Jung. This is the Red Book. This is a really interesting book, I must say. I'm not going to give you a whole summary, don't worry. But basically, this is like his diary. This is like a diary almost that only was published in the year 2000. He died in like the mid-early 1900s. This has been like collecting dust for about 60 years. And the part I'm reading right now, I'm on page 100 or something. And he talks about for the first 40 years of his life, Carl Jung, it's almost like he was just living as like a reflection almost, what's the way? It's so kind of like there's the thing, and then there's like the pale reflection, which is not at all, it's like, it looks like the thing, but it's not the thing. And he looked at himself, and also most human beings like that. Most human beings are kind of like just a pale, distorted representation, if you will, of what they truly are, the soul, the eternal soul. And anyway, he started going through this spiritual awakening process. Again, he's the one that came up with just the term synchronicity. And there came a point when he was about 40 years old when he started to be able to kind of communicate with his soul, which for you and me, more practically speaking, it might be intuition. Have you noticed your sixth sense, your intuition is a lot louder? It's a lot more clear and surprisingly accurate. How many times have you met someone and your first impression, even if everything is perfect on paper, you had some kind of knowing that this person is no good. This person is not going to be good for you. Something about him or her you don't understand. It doesn't feel right. And then you ignore it because you're like, I should give people a chance. It's not fair to me to judge. How do I know this could mean nothing? Lo and behold, you're spot on. Something happens to confirm that. Your intuition, your soul, this sense of internal guidance is back. Tell me right now. If you're still here, it's like 20 minutes into the video, I bet that part of you is back. And I know you've probably always been somewhat intuitive, but I bet it's a lot. It can be kind of hard to ignore. And Carl Jung talks about that. Sometimes he does look at it kind of like a burden because there's times where the personality construct wants to do something, but there's this soul, the spirit of the depth is what he calls it, kind of a cool term. The spirit of the depth is saying, no, you're doing this instead. You're like, well, I don't want to do this. I want to do this. Now, the spirit of the depth, your soul, my soul, it always knows best. And a lot of times it tries to kind of like compel us to go in these directions that make absolutely not a single lick of sense whatsoever. You're thinking, how could I possibly do this? Why would I do this? It would be dumb and foolish to do this. And yet, whenever you do it, things always work out. My soul at one point, as a kind of an extreme example, was pretty much begging me, if you will, my intuition. I just knew in my heart, I have to quit my jobs, plural. I had two ways of making money at that time, like 10 years ago in my life. I was a personal trainer. I also grew medical marijuana in my basement. And I was a family man. I had 3 kids, a wife, a house, car leases. I had a lot going on. And my soul was like, stop, just stop it all. Okay. Eventually it wore on me and I finally closed down the gym. And that was a massive leap of faith. That seemed so ridiculous on paper. Everyone wondered, why are you doing this? Your gym was doing pretty good. You seem happy. You worked hard at it. Why? I didn't have an answer, but I just found it exhausting to resist the persistence of my soul. And I was able to kind of justify that because I had this little side hustle of growing weed in my basement. And then after I let go of the gym, that same feeling was like put onto the grow. It was like, you got to let this go also. At that point, I said, this is nuts. I'm not doing that. I literally refused. And I found myself sometimes lying awake in the middle of the night with this feeling in my body. Like I would describe it kind of like a basketball-sized knot of anxiety in my like solar plexus, because I knew I was going against what was being asked of me. And as weird as that sounds, I knew better. I knew I was hanging on to something purely out of fear, purely because I didn't understand it. And I knew it wasn't going to work out long term. And I'd wake up with this feeling in my stomach, right? And it would get so uncomfortable that I would just kind of snap. And in the middle of the night, I would sometimes run downstairs, go into my basement, and I would turn the lights off to my grow. Which, if you're a grower, you know, turning your lights off, it is a big deal. You can't really disturb the light cycle. And the moment those lights turned off, that feeling in my chest was gone. Oh, I felt so good. I'd go back upstairs, and sometimes I'd wake my wife up. I'd say, hey, honey, I finally did it. Because she knew I had this whole debate going on of whether to quit the grow or not. Babe, I did it. Very good, honey. And go back to sleep. I'd go to sleep. And I'd wake up the next day and I would like come to my senses and realize like, okay, genius, you just turned the lights off. You have no way of making money. What are you going to do the next time the rent bill is due? What are you going to do about the other 15 bills you get on every given month? And my mind would get working. This other part of me would get working and I would freak out and I'd run downstairs. I'd turn the lights on and I'd try to salvage anything that was like disrupted. And that went on over and over and over again for months. I'd wake up in the middle of the night. I'd have a moment of clarity. I'd go downstairs. I'd turn the lights off. I'd feel better. I'd wake up the next day. I'd freak out. I'd turn them on. This went on over and over and over and over again until one time I woke up in the middle of the night. Same thing happened. I had that knot in my stomach. I went downstairs knowing myself, knowing my absurd pattern. And this time I went down there with these huge like garden shears and I chopped those babies down. There was no turning back because I knew I had to listen. I knew it was best. Even though I didn't understand, it was best to listen to my intuition, to my soul. And sure enough, I woke up the next day and freaked out. No, you really dug yourself in, bonehead. Now what? Not even 6 months later, a few months later, through intuitive ideas, I was able to move my family across the country to San Diego, California, a beautiful city, by the way. And that was my dream. I thought it was going to take a good 10 years to get my family out there. That was on my vision board. Months later, I was there. A few months after that, I was doing online coaching. My YouTube channel blew up. I was making way more money than ever before, had way more freedom than ever before. I would get off of work at noon and go home and to where I was living and play with my children. And my life literally improved on all imaginable levels faster than I could have ever possibly. If somebody would have told me that what was going to happen and how quickly it happened was possible, there's no way. I would not have believed it. And that's what following your intuition will do for you. You won't know how. We never do. It's always vague. I don't know why, but it always seems to be vague. There always seems to be details missing and escaping us. And yet, if we follow what we know to be true in the moment, it doesn't always just work out as in be like, okay, things get great. Life improves in like an exponential way when we finally start taking guidance from our better self, our higher self, our intuition, our soul, rather than our fearful, programmed, conditioned mind. And once again, these numbers represent enlightenment, spiritual awakening, spiritual enlightenment. So right now you might find yourself, I bet you do, kind of intrigued by that idea. Maybe more interested than usual in esoteric, metaphysical, religious types of content. All of a sudden, you're drawn to it. Even the information is kind of finding its way into your lap anyways. And also, as you are looking at it or watching it or reading it, whatever, it's striking you in a deeper way. It's ringing more true than ever before. I know for me, when this was going on, I found myself absolutely obsessed with near-death experiences. It's pretty crazy. Thousands of people have literally died for sometimes up to like an hour, and they come back, and everyone's saying the same thing. These are like rational people. Some are doctors, lawyers, like normal, rational people. They're not all wackos. They're saying, yeah, I died. I felt really good. I floated above my body. There was this light. I went into the light. I saw my deceased mom and grandpa. They were there, and I felt nothing but love and expansiveness. I didn't even want to come back. That's what like they all say. And I was just so intrigued by this. And just like my voracious reading of all these different near-death experience accounts, it started to kind of reshape my mind and give me more faith. It gave me more of a feeling, a tangible feeling of connectedness with whatever it is on the other side, whatever it is that lies beyond what meets the eye. There's something there, and it feels pretty good. It feels pretty much like love and divinity and guidance and infinity. And this research, it started to really confirm and like deepen that awareness. This wasn't like I chose a new set of beliefs. It's more so the same information, which comes in the many forms and many different religious texts and through different mouths. It's all a lot of times boils down to the same thing. And all of a sudden, it just started ringing true to me on a very deep, profound level. I tell you all this because if that's you, don't feel bad staying up till 3 a.m. watching YouTube videos on spiritual awakening or whatever it is you're doing. I know you might think it's a bit odd. I know you probably wish you had folks to talk about it with because this is all kind of on you. That's okay. It's how it is for most people, I can say. It's the same case with me. But I do say this to encourage you, just as the numbers probably already are doing, keep digging, keep reading, keep following what feels good, what feels right for you. And if it's watching 15 YouTube videos after dinner every night, so be it. Now it's going to get a little bit out there if it's not already out there for you. They also mean that you are ascending with the earth. Maybe this is new to you, maybe not. But if it is new, you're going to probably keep seeing this in other places, which is okay. I don't take offense if you feel skeptical at what I'm about to say, which is the planet itself, Mother Gaia, as some folks call, is going through an evolution, a raising of its own frequency. The planet is being almost inundated with this new cosmic energy, causing all this upheaval, all these changes, the weather patterns, the socio-political and economic upheaval, all of the other things we're all quite aware of, the wars. There's all this transformation taking place, all this upheaval, because there's a big shift going on with the planet, and you and many others are going with it. Because what you're seeing happening with the planet is also happening on a microcosmic individual level with you and your life. That's why everything's kind of changing. You might feel like you don't know what's going on. There's just change happening. You're changing. All these cool things are happening. All these emotions coming up. You're seeing the freaking numbers. What the hell is going on? There's this evolution, and this is something that has been prophesized by many different people over the last 100 years. The Hopi Indians talked about it. Nostradamus talked about it. There's a lot of another thing that's talking about it is this woman I'm a big fan of, Dolores Cannon. She's deceased, but she's an amazing hypnotherapist, and she has this technique called QHHT. It takes you into the deepest possible level of trance, the somnambulistic level of consciousness. I'm certified. That's why I know all this stuff. And anyway, this woman has done thousands of readings or thousands of hypnotherapy sessions, which last about 5 hours with thousands of people. And in the last like 20 years, 20, 30 years, people are going out, you could say, going up, and they're coming back with this very unusual yet very similar type of information, which is what I just said to you, that the planet is going through a change and evolution, and some people are going with it because they're raising their frequency with the planet. And the people and the planet, it's going into like a whole other octave, a whole other dimension, a whole other type of reality. As crazy as that sounds, how does that feel in your body? I know for me, when I first read about this in this one of Dolores Cannon's books, I thought, this is absolutely insane. So why does it feel in my core more true than anything I know? I didn't have an answer for that. But it come to find, I'm not the only one who feels that, who senses that. Just like Carl Jung. And the reason why he honestly waited, he insisted that this book does not get released until like way after decades after he's dead. He said because the spirit of the depth is not going to make sense to what he called the spirit of the time. So what I'm saying to you is, as best I can, coming from what I know on a deeper level to be true, but I don't know how. I can't explain this to you. I can't prove it to you, just like Carl Jung said. But there's a reason this book is out now. The reason people like me are out here saying this stuff now, and there's a reason people like you are feeling the vibes, feeling it yourself, and I'm not the only one. I don't understand it much beyond what I said, but what I said is what really feels in my heart to be true. And the crazy thing is, I'm not the only one saying it. So you can do what you will with that last bit. And finally, my friend, if you're seeing 1111, we're going to kind of just continue going down the rabbit hole if you'll humor me here for a minute. If you're seeing the numbers 1111, it means you're a light worker. It means that not only are you one that is aware of all this that I'm talking about, but because you are meant to help. You are meant to participate. You are meant to raise the collective vibration by participating in some way, contributing. You have a purpose. There's a reason you're here. There's a reason you're alive now. There's a reason you're watching this video. There's a reason this crazy content makes sense to you on some deep soul level. You're like, yeah, I get this. It's almost like a memory because you're meant to do something with it, not just bug out in your apartment wondering what the hell that all was about, because you're meant to do something with it. Do you feel that? I bet you do. I bet you feel that there's this yearning for a sense of purpose, or even a knowing that you do have one, even if you don't know what it is just yet. You know you came to do what? What's the word that comes to your mind? I know I came to help. You came to help, right? You came to help. Help what? The plants, the animals, the people, myself, my family. I don't know. That's for you to figure out, my friend. It's kind of an interesting mystery that will continue to unfold. But you came to help, which is why you're watching this still after like 30 some odd minutes. Why you're watching it still, because you're meant to help. You're a light worker. And if you want to learn more about what it really means to be a light worker and some of the unique things that happen to light workers and make them different, I'm going to leave a video because this video is already getting too long. I'll leave another video up in one of these corners if you want to learn what it means to be a light worker and signs you are a light worker. This will take you a lot deeper than where this video took you, if you could even believe that. So thank you for watching, my friend. Have an amazing day and much love to you all. Peace.